All right, welcome to part one of this demonstration. So today we'll be covering how to access the International Index of Music Periodicals starting from your San Jose State University Library homepage. We'll also have a brief overview of some of the features on the IIMP homepage itself. So let's get started. There's two main ways I want to tell you about for accessing this database starting from our SJSU homepage. The first is just to the left and below our basic search bar here, you'll select articles and databases. And this, of course, will take us to our A to Z database page. And of course, we can just simply search for the guide here in the Search for Databases search bar. But another way to do that would be to select the I, and we'll go ahead and scroll down until we hit International Index to Music Periodicals here. But the other option I want to give you is to actually do a subject search here in the search bar for music. Now, depending on the purpose of your research, you may be interested in comparing multiple databases within the same discipline. So as you can see, we've got multiple options to choose from here that we would be able to access with our SJSU login credentials, all in the same category. We're going to go ahead and select IIMP. And here we are at the homepage. Let's talk about some of the basics next. And welcome to the IIMP homepage. If you have any experience with ProQuest as a platform, a lot of these features will likely be pretty familiar to you. We are going to look at some of the basic homepage features before we dive into our first basic search. So below our search options at the top of the page here, when you scroll down, you will see a little about blurb here. But really what I want to draw our attention to before we even get started is the subject coverage here. And I want to give an important PSA that in order to conduct effective research, it's really essential to discern whether the scope of your research goal aligns with this specific subject coverage. And you really must do this before you even begin a query. If you don't, you really risk losing valuable research time, especially when you're working to a deadline or if you're in a time crunch. So be sure to take the time to look over this list here before you even begin your research. Now, with that being said, let's start back at our basic search bar here at the top. So above our bar, we have the options for a basic search, an advanced search, and searching by publication. We already looked a little bit at the about blurb, and we will not be changing databases today during this tutorial. Now, beneath our search bar, we have the options for full text search, specifying peer-reviewed articles, and we also have the option here to exclude reviews. So when you're signed in, you will also have an option that appears here to look through your recent searches, which can be really helpful if you're working on a really lengthy project. And then we will also have this very important link to our search tips page here. Now, moving on to the right side of our page, we will see some other help options. Here you can search for online help. And when you click this, we have a pop-up which outlines some of the basic ProQuest functions. And when you click this search tab here on the right, it also becomes a searchable guide, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Now, back to the Want to Learn More tab. If you are really struggling and you need a more comprehensive ProQuest help guide and information, I would suggest using the link for answers to common questions here, this link for the word discover. This will redirect you to a page with a lot of options, which can be a bit overwhelming. So again, if you're on a time crunch, I would really strongly suggest using the more basic help guide along with the search tips as much as possible, just because, like I said, this will redirect you and it can be kind of overwhelming with the amount of information. Now, lastly, we have an important search tip here on the bottom right, and we are about to learn just how important it is as we move on to our first basic search. When conducting any search on IIMP, or the Music Periodicals database as it's also called, it's essential to be as specific as possible with your search terms. So you may think that a term in your search is clear and unambiguous, only to be surprised by the limited number of relevant results yielded by your query. So for instance, the last name Joplin may seem unique and unambiguous and specific to you as a searcher, but IIMP will not automatically determine whether you're searching for the American singer-songwriter who rose to fame in the 1970s, Janis Joplin, or American composer of the late 1800s, also known as the King of Ragtime, Scott Joplin. But sometimes even including both names can be tricky, and you might need to add another layer of specificity. And this is where the search tip that we talked about earlier comes into play. So by default, we will look for documents with all the terms entered. Great. However, use quotation marks to search for exact phrases. And what I'm hoping we can remember here is that anything that has multiple words can be seen as an exact phrase. So let's add some quotations to our search and see what happens. Now again, this is a very basic search. We have not started exploring advanced search yet, but even just doing this basic search, we are not overwhelmed by the number of results that we're getting. And it appears that many of the search results here are relevant to our search because we used a very highly specified term and we also used quotes. So now let's spend some time talking about how to interpret these results. I want to work with our very first result today as an example, elaborating the 12 bars blues form in stride piano improvisation. We know this is a highly relevant result because it does mention Scott Joplin by name. You likely know, if you are researching this, that this style was pioneered by Scott Joplin in this time period. So we know that it's relevant. Let's go ahead and explore some of the icons around the result listing. So first we have this quotation mark icon, which will allow you to cite any source that you selected. Let's go ahead and click on it. When you select the icon, another tab will appear with various citation options. The default will likely be set to whatever the given database prefers. Personally, I have mine set to APA 7th. That's what I use the most. Select the drop-down menu if you'd like to change to a different citation method. Feel free to, you can copy and paste, but you also have the option here to export using RefWorks. Now the next icon here, the envelope, is fairly straightforward. It's to email the result. And the last one, which I really want to spend some time on here, is to save to my research. And there's multiple ways to use this icon when you are interpreting results. You can click it to save a specific article to your research, or you can select multiple and then click on Save to My Research up top on this icon that is above all of our results. And when you select that, you will be prompted to log in using your SJSU credentials in order to actually save the research to your given account. So these are just some of the ways that we can interpret our results as we're moving our way through the IIMP database.